You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. And I know I tell y'all all the time that I have a new favorite for you, but I promise you today is another new favorite. I've got Brandon Lowkaran with us. He's from the Northern Virginia market. He's absolutely delightful. You're going to love this conversation. So get buckled in and I'll see you on the other side. Hello, Brandon.
Hey there. Morning.
Okay, so I've been trying to pronounce your name in my head. Is it Lowkaran or Low?
Yeah, you got it right. You got it right.
I was like, it can't be pronounced like that because then I picture a really short Karen lady.
Well, I could tell you a funny story with, my first name is B, and a lot of company email is B first initial, last name, and you can imagine what.
Hey, that's funny, and probably funnier since Karen became a pejorative. But now we're changing it to Margaret, I guess, and so I guess it fades out.
Is it? What's the guy version of it? I always
Chad.
Was it
Chad?
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know any Chads that are super good friends, but one of my dear running friends, her name is Karen, and she's the most excited for that era to pass because she's like, I'm a nice person. I'm like, I know you are, baby.
That's funny. So I have we have a close, very very close family friend. I call her Miss Karen. She's like in her 70s, but she's like a really close friend to us and our kids and our family. And she plays into it. She's like, don't make me be a Karen.
Oh, I like that. The spicy 70-year-old with the no filter.
Yeah, don't mess with her. Don't mess with her. Her grandbabies, right?
Well, tell us how old your kids are, because if you were raised to call her Miss Karen, means you were raised right, which means you're raising your kids right. So tell me about them.
So I've got a 10-year-old boy, all boys, by the way. So 10-year-old, we have a 2-year-old who's just, his name's Axel. The firstborn's Bryant. Our 2-year-old's Axel, and he's very much like an Axel. Like you would expect them. Amazing. Yeah. Just, balls to the wall all the time. Right. But very funny and loving at the same time. It's really cool. And then we have a 7-week-old named Elion. So yeah. Yeah. So
yay, babies.
Yeah. They're out of the house. They actually went to the Army Museum because my wife's like, you're going to be recording a podcast. It's probably safe for me to just go take them somewhere. So
she's an island in a sea of testosterone, and
yes,
she's going to be the most excited ever when one of them brings a girlfriend home.
Yeah. I mean, we do want a girl, we do want a girl to balance things out, so we'll see what, the Lord brings us, There's
going to be no balancing. If you have a girl at this point, they're going to turn her into a wild machine,
Oh, yeah. Which I'm all for, right? Because then it's like, don't mess with me. Don't mess with my sister. You're going to have to go through all 3 boys before you get to her, right? And then dad.
All right. So tell my audience where you and your beautiful family are located, what you do in and around the real estate world. Give them a little more of a thumbnail of who you are.
Sure. So, I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. Probably one of the most like romantic towns. Like if you look it up, it's pretty cool.
I love Old Town. It's
yes. So we love it too. It's we love Old Town, Alexandria. We live about 6 miles south of Old Town in the Mount Vernon area, and so it's fun here. And in real estate, I got into real estate in 2016 as an idea by my mom, just saying, hey, we should go get licensed. So what's funny is, I'll tell you a quick story, is she was like, hey, you should go get your license, because she was getting married and they were going to sell her house, his house, and buy a new house. I was like, oh, that's great. Like 3 deals. Like that's awesome. Right. Guess what? Got my license. They didn't do any of that.
I mean, that's pretty typical.
Yes. Yeah. So we do. So I got into it and then jumped into it full time in 2019. It's been fun. Licensed in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and because we're so close to the tri-state area, and it's a fun market. It's a lot of fun. I belong to the McLean Market Center.
Oh, very good.
Keller Williams office and whatnot. But yeah, we primarily work with regular home buyers, sellers, and then we do a lot of investors and investments, private equity, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All right, now we have to tell the world that there is this hilarious acronym for realtors in your market that you work the DMV, which
Yes.
I think is the worst acronym y'all could have ever picked as a bunch of real estate pros. That's the worst agency ever to go visit. And you work a pretty exciting market with a lot of different flavors to it, a lot of different legislative outcomes, Maryland versus Northern Virginia versus Capital. And so you've got all these different angles, but I mean, you work for the DMV.
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, but we're an efficient DMV. Okay, we're the best DMV you're gonna
Okay,
come
that's fair.
to.
Well, you're actually coming on my podcast at a really interesting time in the DMV market because we're recording this in the middle of February 2025 in case somebody picks this up later. And there has been a huge viral talking online about the devastation in the Northern Virginia real estate market because of the efficiencies happening in the government.
Sure.
But when I talk to any of my real estate professional friends or I look at the data for Bright MLS, the story's not nearly as as you would see it online. So why don't you give us an actual timely snapshot about, is the market collapsing in and around Washington, D.C. right now?
The straight answer is no, it's not collapsing. For instance, and to help your audience, it's a lot of people are saying, there's so many homes on the market, like, everyone's leaving DC because they're getting fired, and that's really not the case. So if you go back historically, this time last year in February, for instance, Fairfax County, which I live in, there was 1,000, I think I'm going off from memory here, 1,000, I checked yesterday or 2 days ago, 1,019 homes on the market at this point. This year, I think it's 1,034. So, it's
that's definitely an increase.
Yeah, definitely devastating increase. Yeah. But there's a lot of misinformation out there that I think people will say things just to become viral or go viral. And it's all it is sound bites, it's I don't doubt that there's pent up demand, there's pent up, inventory is still low. We're still in a low inventory market. I'm sure like you guys in the Charlotte area, it's very much like that across the US. There's very few markets, I think, that are buyers markets. They're all still very much like sellers market.
Well, and there's a reason here. If you're a listener and you are not in real estate, what we would beg of you is that when you read something like that, you call one of us that's in the local market and let us walk you through, because it's probably a mix of truth and fiction that depends on the neighborhood and depends on the zip code. Because to your point, Brandon, our market still has low inventory in Charlotte, but it is still a softer market than it was because buyers are a little hesitant with interest rates. And we all understand that 3% is not coming back. Can we all repeat that together? 3% is not coming back. Now, we did go below 7, and it may go down a little bit, but it's not going to tank. And we still have buyers that would like to get in a time machine. Mm-hmm. But we also have sellers who the jobs do change. They did get relocated or they did get divorced and have to sell. And so there can be simultaneously lower inventory and price softening. Because one of the numbers we've seen out of the Northern Virginia market is that prices have softened a little. Well, that could be because some of the available houses have a seller who has the motivation to get out ahead of their competitors, which is not necessarily a market reflection as much as it is that seller's scenario. So long story short, always talk to your local realtor instead of getting all your news off of social media. That's just not your plan.
Yeah, it's so true too. To add to that, I think you're exactly right. Some neighborhoods here, very specific neighborhoods though, you are seeing a softening in a sense that they're not getting, $100,000 off the price, but the seller might cover their closing costs. And we negotiated one recently where the seller is covering, he's getting an FHA loan, so he's able to get, more, he's getting 3.5% back from the seller, right? To help buy down the rate a little bit. But the seller is actually still getting the price that he wants. He's giving up a little bit, So the softening, I think, is probably in the 0 to 5% like softening, assuming, you got a good negotiator and you're able to negotiate a good deal. So.
And I would call that a reasonable amount of negotiation. It's not like it was during the Great Recession, which was obviously you were probably still in middle school back then, but that was a different ball game than now. But it's also better than 2022, where buyers didn't even have the power to get that FHA loan across. And I love that you mentioned an FHA loan, because that tells me that you're working with first-time buyers, and we
Yes.
love helping them get started on their homeownership journey. But we couldn't get a lot of agents to consider FHA loans during the heat of the COVID market. So that's one sign of the normalization of the market, is the loan type. So tell us about, you're obviously a younger family and you're still growing. You've got a wife out there. How have you taken your family dynamics right now to connect to people in the marketplace to give them hope? Because I'm obviously a little older than you are. My generation expected to buy a house. Your generation, in contrast, is being told there's no hope, you're going to rent forever. How do you combat that message in an expensive market where you're obviously having that success?
So, I think it's more so telling them about the programs available. This is very common for people to believe they need 20% to put down to buy their first
Why
home.
does that
I
pervade?
don't know. Yeah, it's like everybody got the email and somehow all the realtors missed it. It's like, yeah.
Because it came from an AOL account. That's how old that is. Oh,
America Online, I do know what it means.
oh, that makes you an elder millennial then, because a Gen Z is not going to know that.
No. I mean, they're not even know what a CD is, but
No, they're not. But they know records, because records are coming back, but they cost $50.
That's true.
So anyway, back to what you were saying about available programs.
Yeah, so it's really just educating them, telling them, hey, you do not need zero, you don't need 20% to get a home. You can actually get into a home with zero down almost. Because with the like in Virginia, we have the VHDA program, we have the FHA Plus program, like you guys, I'm sure. And I'm sure your state has something like that, where they'll actually give you a grant towards that down payment. And let's say again, you get a strong agent, they are able to negotiate the seller to pay all the closing costs. You're in the house for no money. So that's how we educate them and tell them, hey, this is more attainable than you think it is. And I had a friend that she's a nurse, and I was telling her about this, and she's like, what? Like, this is amazing. Like, this is great. And then, introduced her to the lender, and she was like, oh my gosh. And she got into the house with only having to pay like $5,000. And, I think most people probably have about $30,000, $35,000 saved up, to buy a house. But, my goal for them is to not use all of that. Right. And so we just help educate them and figure out what they qualify for by just having a conversation with the lender. So we just say, hey, look, they don't have to run credit. They don't have to do anything, but at least have a conversation to see if this is even feasible for you. And if it's something you'd even like to think about. And the other thing too is, like, we do the math, the typical realtor math, like, what are you paying a month in rent? $3,000. Okay. $36,000 a year. You're just giving to somebody like, I'm sure you got rental properties like us that have rental properties, and you're paying off our mortgages. So, if you want to keep doing that,
That's great. We love you.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah. So yeah, it's just those conversations.
I love that you're calling it a conversation. I wish more realtors did that, because when we tell a consumer, go talk to the lender, get pre-approved, that can feel like a barrier. But when you introduce it as, look, my lender's going to walk you through this option, that option, you're at the Golden Corral, let's look at the buffet and figure out what makes sense. That should take a lot of the fear out, because there is this inherent fear of finding out you're not going to be credit worthy, you're not going to have the money for it, and none of us want to be rejected. So maybe we need to talk about, in our professional space, how we reintroduce people to financial conversations that don't have to hurt.
Yeah, and even with that, it's having a lender that truly understands, because we work with a group of different lenders, and you do your best to match up their personalities with like how they act and how they are. And our lenders, all of them, though, I will say, will work with everybody, because sometimes your credit does need some help, and that's okay. However, the lender can tell you from their perspective, hey, I think this is what we need to work on in order to get you qualified. And it might be a year-long process. It might be a 2-year-long process, and that's okay. And it's just having that conversation, because the lender could give you the plan of exactly what they need. It's like them giving you the map to the treasure. It's like, hey, this is what we need. You just got to follow it,
I mean, you could totally say that in DC because we talk about national treasure. You just gave the treasure map, and maybe it's
Yeah.
a long pathway to get. This could be the cutest little video series ever for an enterprising content creator. So there, either you do it, I'm not going to, but somebody watching this can. All right. So you came into real estate in 2016. You're approaching a decade. So you better start thinking about your marketing plan. But I want to know
Yep.
what you did before real estate. What were you doing in your jobby job before you jumped into this wild field?
Sure. So I know you live pretty close to Charlotte Motor Speedway. So one of my dreams as a kid was to actually be a race car driver. And
Oh,
I don't know if do you know how to make $1 million racing?
I do not know. I know how you
You
lose them.
start with two. You start with
Oh,
two, yeah. so, so basically, I wanted to do that, race cars and go-karts. And however, my backup plan was always, construction. So I got an internship at an architect firm during high school, and that landed me a job into the as an architectural drafter. And then I moved up at that company as a project manager pretty quickly. And so I did that for about 5 years. I didn't go to college. So, I did that right out of high school. And it was fun. It was great. However, just wanted something more. So I worked for a construction company as a project manager, and we did, large, mostly buildings in like downtown areas because there were large glass buildings or metal panel buildings, that kind of thing. So that was fun. And that's kind of what I did. So my racing career didn't work out. However, like I had my plan B in check, which was construction. So that worked out.
so as a dad, your wife's probably glad you're not in a highly dangerous sport that involves you running around an oval at high rates of speed in a little tiny metal box.
Yeah.
Is this me or a filter? What I can tell you is that this is me after sleeping on cozy earth sheets. Crazy, y'all. They really do make a difference, especially if you are a lady of a certain age who has night times that go into a million zillion degrees. And I know that if I want to make that better, I've got to prioritize myself. And prioritizing my sleep means using sheets that are good for me, that feel better, and frankly, I work my tail off. I like decent sheets. And the best part is I can give y'all a 40% off code because did you know that if you want to prioritize your sleep, then you can go to cozyearth.com and use my exclusive code real estate and get 40% off not just the sheets, but the towels and the pajamas and more. And make sure that you tell somebody you heard about Cozy Earth from Leigh Brown and her medium-aged Helipause self. So go check it out and prioritize your sleep because you know what? You're going to sleep better with Cozy Earth. Trust me, it's totally worth it, especially when it's 40% off. But I got to ask you a question. So you've got a construction background. You know things about the construction and the formation of buildings, how they operate. Does it drive you completely nuts to talk to real estate professionals who don't have the foggiest idea how buildings actually work?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I say that all the time. It's, for instance, if you go to a dealership and you go to a Ferrari dealership and you're going to drive a Ferrari, you want the salesman to be like, yeah, this thing has got 800 horsepower, it does 0 to 60 in 3.6. And they know all the technical aspects of the car. And it's like, they have to do that to be a better salesperson. And I wonder why real estate agents don't educate themselves on learning how a building actually goes together. Because one of the first things when I do when I go into a house, and I tell my buyers this all the time is, hey, listen, you go look at the pretty stuff in the house. I'm going to go check out the dirty stuff. I'm going to go check the age on the water heater, the age on the HVAC system, and look at the foundation, or just to see like, should we even like pursue this? Like, not barring a home inspection, but that way they don't get into something that they don't want to deal with, and having that construction experience too, you can tell them, hey, well, replacing this carpet will cost you $4,000, or these floors, if you want hardwood, it would be $7,000, and new cabinets, $20,000. You could give them ideas like that so they could start thinking about how long do I want to be here? How much money do I want to invest? I agree with you so much. It's really important, I think, and it actually sets people apart as an agent because you know that, and they feel confident buying with you because, a lot of times people tell me like, I trust you, Brandon, I trust your expertise. So if you say it's good, I'm good with it, and even the home inspectors will come by and say, yeah, this is a clean house. And they'll be like, good job, Brandon. And, keep it moving. Cause sometimes people still want to do a home inspection so the inspector teaches them how to operate the house when you and I are not there. So Yeah.
Well, and we want them to have an inspection because as you and I both know, another set of eyes might spot something from a different angle or test something that we didn't know about. And so it's always good to have more eyes on it. But the things you're mentioning, the water heater, the heat and air, the foundation, material facts are things realtors are responsible for.
Yeah.
And I wish there was a bigger focus and training on agents doing what I love that you call it the dirty work, to go around and lay eyes on it instead of just looking at the pretty parts, because we've all seen a flip house where somebody lovingly put lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
You put in the luxury vinyl plank and you put in the granite, but they didn't do the windows and they didn't do the foundation. And now somebody's inherited a problem house.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of improvements that could be happening if we would take better care of learning about what we're selling. So I know that that's got to be a huge advantage for you in your business. And obviously you're young, and this is one of the reasons you're probably successful a little faster than your compadres. So when you look at your 9 years in real estate, coming out of construction and architecture information into the retail side, working different angles of the business, I have to ask you, what have you encountered that you would say is, I still can't believe I saw this. I can't believe this happened. Give us all a little story about life in the DMV that surprised you on the real estate side.
Oh man. So where do I start? We're gonna be here all day, but anyway, so there was one kind of comes to mind actually, where this gentleman, the lender, we got under contract, he was approved, and basically we did an extended close because he needed to sell his existing house before he bought. The seller, again, was willing to work with that. So we did a 3-month close instead of a typical 30-day close. So which was going to give us time to sell his house inside of that exit, and then also get a release of on his VA so that he could buy the other house using the 0 down. And so we did that, put his house on the market. It started at the house, right? So I get there, and we always do our walkthrough, 3 days, we did before. So I sent him a list of things like, hey, take care of this, take care of that, move this, move that. And then I get to the house 3 days before the photographer arrives, and it's like the exact same condition. And I'm like, hey man, what are we doing here? Like, this thing is supposed to be gone. Like, it looks kind of worse. So then I started helping him like clean up stuff and like the things we do for our clients, right? And anyways, so the photographer comes, we get good photos, put it on the market, and then we realized that in that time frame, there was something else that needed to happen that the lender had discovered. So we negotiated a pre-occupancy settlement. So we were able to occupy the property before he closed on it. Then it made it easier. So then you move all the stuff out from the one house and put it into the new house, and everything be okay. Well, this thing went on for like 6-7 months this contract, it was like the longest contract I've ever done, probably longer than some of our new construction. It's like, and it's, so we get to the house, and I told my lender, I said, hey, I need you to call this guy every single week. I need you to call him. When you have like an inkling of something just doesn't feel right. Something just doesn't feel right. And I told her, I said, hey, can you please call him and just make sure everything's tracking. She calls him up and she's like, hey, how's it going? Is everything going well? He's like, yeah, everything's great. We're tracking along. I'm following your plan that you gave me. And again, that went on for 2 months, 3 months. Well, we get to the time when it's time for him to submit everything back to her. And she's like, Brandon, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, okay, he went out, he got 2 additional loans. He was late on this card, late on that loan that he just got, and he has no money in the bank. And I was like, what? And she's like, how does someone go from making, $260,000 a year or $240,000 a year and not have any money in the bank? And then they took out a loan and are late on those exact loans. She's like, I don't know what to do. Like, she's like, she's very experienced. She's like, I've never seen it. It's funny to really like make her, like upset her or like, cause she's been in the business for over 30 years. And she's like, I don't know what to say. So it's kind of funny that when she says that, cause you're like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know, somehow she pulled it off, and cause the seller was threatening to take his EMD, rightfully so. And it was a mess. It was a real mess. And I didn't know. And he just didn't care. It was one of those situations where I felt like based on his response, it was just like not caring. And I was like, man, I genuinely didn't know what to do. He didn't follow the plan. And I can't believe people take out credit cards and then in the middle of a loan, you tell them, don't go buy a car, don't go get your credit checked, don't, and it was just like the lies was just crazy. And we just, again, our lender, she pulled in every favor that she needed, that she could have, and she got it done somehow, with a new plan, and that he happened to execute in 2 weeks. So,
I mean, it just sounds like he completely self-destructed.
yes. Yeah. And it's crazy the amount of people that have money, that make a ton of money, that are just very foolish with it and they don't keep track of it. It's really weird to me. It's really weird.
Is this a good time to tell people that the amount of money you make has nothing to do with your level of financial responsibility? Because that's the fact of it. And when we tell you as your professionals, stop spending when you're in the process, that's for your own good, because we don't want you to lose your deposits. We want you to get the next house. But I think the self-destruction also comes in with lying to his lender about what was going on, because obviously something had gone on in his life.
Yeah. And to give you another example, I have a friend who tenant does very well. Her tenant makes about $800,000 or $900,000 a year.
Tenant?
Yes, the tenant does.
Tenant.
However, the tenant is late on every mortgage, and she is currently evicting her. Like, you know what I mean? And it's not like they're paying $20,000 a month. I think it's a $4,000 or $5,000 a month, rent for someone making $800,000 a year.
You're renting that many thousands of dollars a month in rent. Hello, you could own like multiple properties.
Yeah, they could buy a house cash every month if they wanted to, in the right market.
But again, this goes back to education. So it's a good time to remind everybody, if you've never read it, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And, your kids are the perfect age. Do you know about the game that Kiyosaki came
Cash Flow Quadrant? Yeah.
Game?
It's on our Amazon cart, actually, because I feel like they're of the age now where they could get started on it. My son actually wants to buy a house when he's 13, because he's like, that's when, that's when the Bible says I become a man, so I'm gonna go my house.
I love this kid. He's my favorite. So you got to get the cash flow game. For those of y'all that you're going to look it up, it costs like $100. It's an expensive game, because Kiyosaki wants you to think about it as an investment and not a toy. But I remember the first time my kids played it, Brandon, my daughter had drawn the card for her job, and she was a teacher. I think she was making like $30,000 a year. And then on the board, she landed on take a friend to coffee. And she was like, I don't have the money to take somebody else to coffee. She was like 14 at the time. And I was like, you don't? She's like, I'm a teacher. I don't make enough money to go to Starbucks. And I said, please remember this lesson for later in life, because now she's still forgotten that lesson, but it'll come back to her at some point. But it's just a great way to help you think about inflows and outflows, which is something that is critical to being the person when you're making $800,000, you're not late on your rent.
Yeah. And I have a friend, a good tactic to do with that too. So this guy, the humblest guy you ever meet, runs one of the largest insurance companies in the US, and he, does very well. He said, however, when he was starting out, he was about $5 or $6 million in debt. And what he did was, he had a friend who was a billionaire that was a mentor to him. And he said, what do I do here, man? What do I do? And one of the best pieces of advice he did, that he gave me too, is every month you write everything out that you spend, and like you said, your outflows. And then you write your inflows, and then you do the math and say, okay, does my inflow cover my outflow? And then you look at, what do I need to cut? Maybe it's when I first started buying Starbucks, it was $5 a cup, right? Because I get the frou coffee. I do like my good lattes.
What's
And so
that,
now it's like
$9 now?
$8. Now it's like $8 a cup, right? So you're like, and we did the math, and it was crazy because we realized, my wife and I, she was getting two coffees a day. I was getting 2 coffees a day. And I was like, okay, this is like almost $200 a week that we're spending on coffee. And we ended up buying like a Breville, like Oracle. Yes, it was an investment, but now we have this machine like 5 years later that still works, that we hardly ever buy coffee outside. We just buy coffee beans and we make our espresso at home. And my wife's crafty, so she makes her own milk and stuff like that. So it's great, you know?
But no chemicals either. She's my kind of a girl, it sounds like. All right.
Oh yeah. I jokingly call her my pioneer woman, it's like, because she's making sourdough and stuff,
Yeah, then she's better than the pioneer woman because she's using like boxed cake mix, which I'm just going to point out, none of y'all should ever be eating or buying boxed.
I agree.
Okay, so you said $200 a week times 52 weeks times 5 years. All right, so I just want to point this out because on the internet, you will quite frequently see an influencer who's like, just because they give up coffee doesn't mean they can buy a house. It's not enough. And they always want to say it's not enough. All right.
Yeah.
So if between you and your wife, you're spending $200 a week, and for those of y'all that are Starbucks or I say Dunkin' because you're still paying for it out, even though it's less than Starbucks, over 5 years, that's $52,000. So don't tell me that the coffee money doesn't add up. And I'm pretty sure that your machine didn't cost $52,000.
No.
You gotta put yourself in the position. And in all of this, you're thinking about the next step. You're thinking long term, so that when you're the first time buyer, you need a year to fix your credit. That's not long term. That's short term. That's 1 year of discipline to get yourself to a 5-year plan where you're not making a higher salary and emptying your bank account out. It's all about steps you take today, get you to tomorrow, which is also how your construction background was, the steps that you took to get yourself to a successful real estate career today.
Yeah. It's really baffling too. I learned recently that the average age today of a first-time home buyer is 38.
It's depressing. How old were you when you bought your first house?
I think I was like 22, 23.
Oh, that's very young. How did you do it? Did you use down payment assistance, FHA?
So it's funny. I just got into the business, and my neighbor, because I was living with my mom, and my neighbor, Miss Betsy, very awesome woman. She's in North Carolina now. She's in Conover.
And I go by her place going to the mountains.
Yeah. So she is great because she was like, hey, I'm gonna use you to sell my house. I was in real estate, and we were close. She was, all these old ladies, man, I love them. So yeah. so she came. So I walked out one day and I said, hey, Miss Betsy, I found you a buyer already. She's like, no way. She had this saying. She would say like, hot darn, like.
Yeah, I love this so much.
Hot darn, and then too fine. It's so she's like, oh wow. So I said, she's like, who? And I was like, it's me. She's like, oh my gosh, Brandon, that's awesome. Like, let's talk, and so I came over, and it was actually my first real estate deal for myself. So it was great. And she basically said, hey, I just want what I paid for it, and I will buy you. I mean, she didn't tell us this, but this is what she ended up doing. She bought us pots and pans. She bought me countertops. She like took care of me. Like, it was great. Yeah. So I bought my first house.
That's the sweetest thing ever. Do you send her Christmas cards so she can watch your kids?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I send her pictures of the kids every month. Yeah.
Okay. So Brandon, if anybody wants to reach out to you to ask about becoming a realtor in the DMV, to ask you about how to be a good dad, to find out from you how to invest, how to use down payment assistance, any of those things, what's the best place to reach you, best platform or method?
You can shoot us a message through Facebook or reach out to us on YouTube. It's just Real Estate Investing with Brandon Lowkaran on YouTube. And just reach out. We're happy to just follow us, shoot us a DM, how it is these days. It's like, yeah.
Well, friends, I'm going to have all of the contact information and handles in the show notes for this episode. So if you have stumbled across this while you're out walking, don't worry, get home, pull it up, say something nice about Brandon in the comments, and make sure that you give him a shout if you have questions about how he can pour into your life like so many have poured into his. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, and thank your audience. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, or it was too fine.
It's too fine. And we should all like live a life that makes us want to sell a house to the nice young person next door and give them pots and pans.
Yeah, that's great.
My old lady heart is like kicking up, but also I felt like your wife would probably wish she had a girl in the house to get some earrings because my daughter, my friend Carol's daughter Bree made these and they're chickens with sparkly bits. So this is my shout out to Bree in honor of kids and all the wonderful people who do nice things for kids, because that's good. So anyway, friends, make sure you hit the bell to subscribe. Come back and see us next time, and we'll bring you more conversations.
By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did. As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.